All we need to do is make sure we keep talking.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of the Imperial Tides podcast. I'm your host, Holden, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Simone. And today we're going to be talking about a 1954 musical comedy drama called There's No Business Like Show Business. And to start, I'm going to give you guys a brief play-by-play as to what actually happens in the movie. And movie begins, and there's this vaudeville couple named Molly and Terrence Donahue who perform as the two Donahues. And their story begins in the year 1919 and continues throughout the years all the way up to the 1940s and the start of the Second World War. Over time, the two Donahues become the five Donahues, with Tim, Steve, and Katie Donahue joining their parents' act and making it a family act. At one point, Molly decides to send them, at one point early on in their career when the children are still, kids, Molly, the mother, decides to send them to a prestigious Catholic school so that they can be more like normal, regular children, and have an education and all that. But once there, they try to leave, demonstrating a deep love for their life in the theater and for the, an affinity for the craft and all that sort of thing. And the headmaster of the school even tells the parents this. And so the parents end up they end up allowing them to continue performing, and time goes by, the years go by, and the children have all graduated high school, and a gap is beginning to widen between the two generations of Donahues, and this becomes apparent one night when they're all supposed to go out for their usual post-performance dinner. This is something that they all do together as a family. It's like a ritual that they do. Clearly, that they establish that this is something that is a regular occurrence. However, on this particular night, all three of the kids have bailed out on them. Steve, who is the oldest son, goes for a quiet walk in the park by himself, and Katie, the daughter, and Tim, the second oldest son, go to the same nightclub. They go to the same nightclub, but with their respective dates, so they're separate and not together. But they basically, Katie goes with this guy from the theater, and Tim goes with this girl from the theater. And while she's there, Katie, she doesn't stay for very long because she ends up abandoning her date and leaving the club because her date is being pushy, and he's this really kind of creepy guy to the point where he's this creepy guy with round glasses and like grayish short buzzed cut hair, I guess I would say that, buzzed cut, and he's very pushy, and he really wants to just kind of get all hands on with Katie, to the point where he actually he goes so far as to switch her non-alcoholic ginger ale for his whiskey, presumably in the hopes that will get her drunk enough for her to sleep with him. And she gets out of this situation. She, avoids the creepo by pretending to show him one of the tricks that she does for her shows. She tells him to raise his hands up flat like so, as you can see on my camera. Simone can't see it, but you guys can see it. And then places a glass on each hand. So, there's one here, and then I would put the other one there, but I don't want to spill all over my phone and laptop. And so, yeah, he does this. Imagine that there's a glass on each hand. And then she she runs out of the club before he can do anything about it, and it's very clever because if he runs too fast, he'll spill the drinks, break the glasses, have to pay for all of that. So she gets out of it. Very, very clever, very, very very witty there, cheeky little move on her part, and so she's able to avoid that situation. And then at the club after she's gone, Tim meets a beautiful, a gorgeous hat check-in lady named Vicky Parker. Played by Marilyn Monroe. So this is who she is in the film. She's Vicky Parker. And Vicky is also an aspiring performer. And Tim tries to flirt with her, tries to hit on her, make some of the moves. But tonight is an important night for her. And she rebuffs all of his advances because she's waiting for, some big opportunity that's about to come up, right? And so not long after he leaves, her agent shows up and gives her an outfit. And from there, she performs a seductive song for everybody in the club. And this gains her the interest of a big-time manager named Lou Harris, who agrees to speak with Vicky about potentially doing business together. After her performance, Tim leaves his date, the woman that he came with, who's like super drunk, because I guess that's just what she does. She just gets sloshed all the time. It's, meant to be funny, so it's not like depressing. I kind of make it sound more depressing than it is, but she's just kind of hammered. So he leaves to go to shoot another shot at Vicky in her dressing room, and he playfully pretends he's not like serious. Both of them know he's not what he is about to say that he is, but he pretends to be a quote unquote pretends to be a reporter for Vanity magazine, and they have a brief back and forth exchange, which ends with Vicky again telling him to leave so that she can have her meeting with Lou Harris. And on his way out, Tim bumps into this legendary Lou Harris, who recognizes him as one of the 5 famous Donahues. So one of the famous 5 Donahues. Sorry, although I guess it works no matter what order you word that in. But so and this also establishes that the 5 Donahues do have a lot of success. They are well known in their particular field. So before he leaves, Tim uses his reputation to put in a good word for Vicky. And this is it's not probably like what got her the job. I mean, I'm sure her actual performance got her the job as well, but it's potentially something that contributed to her getting the job. So that lays down the seed for something that will happen later. Back at the Donahue back at the Donahue residence, Steve comes home from his walk in the park by himself, and he reveals to the family that he wants to go to seminary school to become a priest. And this is a bit of a random revelation, and he springs it on the family without much build up or anything, and so it shocks them. Understandably enough, right? It shocks them, especially Terrence, the father, who initially forbids it, but eventually acquiesces because he comes to realize how passionate Steve is about what he wants to do. And we can assume that, Steve, I'm just going to say this now, we can assume that Steve wants to be a priest because he went to Catholic school as a boy. It probably affected him more than any of them would have realized, including himself, right? Himself included. I guess they do set this up. The writers do set this up because in that scene, when they're kids, Tim and Steve, I'm pretty sure like Steve is, well, I don't know actually, because that's a little different. So the scene is basically, I think because Steve is the oldest, I think it's the oldest kid leading the youngest kid. It's the older brother leading the younger brother, trying to, plan an escape. Actually, that might not be so, because I think because Steve is the oldest, so I think he was the oldest there as well. Never mind, I don't know what I'm talking about. But I thought that if Steve was the younger one in that situation, then he was the one that didn't want to leave. So perhaps there was some potential there for, I don't know, I'm getting confused, but I think maybe Steve might have been the kid that wanted to actually stay at the Catholic school. So I'm sure they maybe foreshadowed it there. But in any case, let's not get hung up on specifics here. Let's not get hung up on details. Because why would you want to do that? Why would anyone ever want to do that? So yeah, later, and so then Tim also comes home. Katie comes back, but her character, she kind of just, they don't really give her anything to do. But Tim returns home drunk after trying to basically forget about his failure with Vicky. He comforted himself by getting hammered with the other girl that he was there with, and he's put to bed almost immediately because it's just it's kind of a sight. No one wants him to throw up on the carpet. And so then later after that night, Steve gives one last performance during a going away surprise party that his family has put on for him at their home. And now there are only 4 Donahues. So he gets this nice big send off, and then he goes to seminary school to become a priest, to study to be a priest, right? And so from there, time passes, and during another gig in Miami, Tim reunites with Vicky. And Vicky is more pleased to see him this time around. She's not as, kind of irritable because of the whole, getting her career launched thing. They're past that now. And so, but even though it's nice and they're much more amiable, she and Tim, they get along a lot more here now than they did before. However, it turns out that both the Donahue family and Vicky are going to be performing the same song at that particular venue on the same night. And so Tim tells Vicky that he'll come up with something else for the Donahues to perform, and she thanks him, and she performs her song, her version of that song that they were both going to perform afterwards. And then after that, the two of them go on a date, and Tim is desperate to keep things going. He he starts talking about honeymoons and marriage. He jumps all the way there, and children even. But Vicky tells him to slow things down just a tad, and she kisses him goodnight after a bit of insistence. Tim's another kind of pushy guy. A lot of pushy guys in this movie. And so then after that, Tim responds, I guess, by singing a song about being in love with her outside of her hotel room, and he's tempted to knock on it over and over again as he's doing like the dance choreography. So he'll do like all these twirls, he'll do all this tap dancing, and then he'll like get really close to the door. He'll be like, "Oh, I gotta knock," and he'll stop himself. "Oh, don't knock on the door, don't knock on it." And then I don't know. And so then the next day, Vicky calls the Donahue residence and invites Tim and Katie to join her in a new act that she's doing in Manhattan in New York City. So she presents them with an opportunity. And so that's what I was saying earlier, maybe because Tim's reputation within the world, maybe because that might have been the thing that pushed Vicky to get her job. Now she's kind of returning the favor, it's like I scratch my back, you scratch yours kind of thing. And so they agree. Tim and Katie agree to join Vicky on this new venture of hers, and their parents see them off, and they're happy that they're finding success in the world of theater, that they have these opportunities now and everything. So then from there, Tim, Katie, and Vicky perform a song together in which Vicky is sitting on a red fainting couch and singing about how lazy she is as her phone rings repeatedly, and she rebuffs all of the men trying to ask her out trying to take her out to various places on the other end. And Lou Harris approves of this act. He thinks that Katie and Tim make Vicky look very good. And the show's lyricist, so the guy who writes all of this, the guy who supposedly writes, I mean, these are all Irving Berlin, who's one of he's like a legend in the world of American theater. He was the one that I think pretty much all of the songs were taken from. If not all of the songs, I think every song in this may very well be an Irving Berlin work. But the show's, within the context of the movie, within the film's fictional universe, the show's lyricist is this man named Charlie Gibbs, who asks Katie out for lunch with the intention of eventually asking to marry her. So there's that guy. And Tim tries to take Vicky out for lunch as well, but Lou Harris, the boss, keeps her back to discuss business. And Tim is put out by this. He's very jealous. He's very, we'll come to find that he's kind of an emotionally stable alcoholic freak. Whether the film intends for him to be or not, he kind of is pretty much that. And so the same scenario happens again, actually, when Tim and Vicky are set to go get pizza after rehearsal on another night, a separate occasion. And Vicky stays back to argue with Lou about a purple dress that he wants her to wear for her opening on the show. She doesn't think that it's a good fit for him, and he does, and there's this whole big argument over it, and the dressmaker's there as well, so it becomes this massive debate that just goes on and on and on, all the way into the night. And Tim is put out by this even more so than he was the last time. And when Vicky kind of accidentally stands him up because she's so busy arguing about this with the boss and with the dressmaker, he comes back to the theater, returns to the theater to the theater drunk, and is about to perform a drunken song, a ballad on the piano, when Vicky shows up and asks him what's going on. And in his drunken bitterness, he accuses Vicky of sleeping with Lou Harris in order to keep her job, and the two have a big falling out over that, because obviously that's probably not the kind of thing that you want to say to your girlfriend under any circumstance, that they're sleeping with someone because they need a job or whatever, I don't know. And so that same night, Tim gets into a car accident for being drunk behind the wheel. He's driving with he goes out with like a chorus girl, some extra from some dancer from the production that they're doing, the show that they're doing, and he flips over into a ditch, and it's a whole big thing. And so Terrence, the father, goes to visit him in the hospital, and the two have a bit of an argument. Tim insults his father, basically, and Terrence, he says something sarcastic, and Terrence slaps him in return and tells him he never wants to see him again. And Tim takes this to heart. He takes this really personally. He's really sensitive, this guy, Tim, little Timmy boy, and he disappears. He disappears from the family, cuts off contact with them, and just writes them a letter saying goodbye. It's like a suicide note, pretty much. And so Terrence and Molly do everything they can to try and locate him, but are ultimately unsuccessful. And so Molly, the mother, replaces Tim on the show, and so it's going to be Molly and Katie, mother and daughter, instead of brother and sister. The show turns out, and the show itself, the show in Manhattan, it turns out to be a huge success and goes on for an entire year and is performed at the Hippodrome Theater in New York, which is apparently like this massive, major venue, very famous, iconic kind of place. And America's entrance into the Second World War comes about. So now we're in the 1940s, and Steve volunteers to go overseas as an army chaplain, and so he's gone. And Katie marries Charlie, and so that's her kind of whole thing tied up. And Katie also forces Molly and Vicky to become friends, as Molly blamed Vicky for Tim's disappearance. Though through Katie, however, Molly is able to see Vicky's side, to see her perspective, and now accepts her, and realizes that it's pretty much Tim just being a little bitch or whatever that led to the fallout, the breakup, and the disappearance, and so forth. And yeah, so now the five Donahues are all pretty much disbanded until, well, but not really, because I mean, they're not really disbanded, but the family's not what it used to be, and so they're kept apart until one night during a performance of the massively successful show in New York, and that's when Tim returns, and it is revealed that he enlisted in the U.S. Navy after the fight with his father. And so then from there, the five Donahues do properly reunite and perform one of their old songs together on stage, which was seen previously in the film. So it's a callback to that. There's another callback to another song. We can talk about that when we talk about the songs themselves in particular. But yeah, they sing their songs, and that opens the show, the rest of the show, and everybody reunites and reconciles, and it's one big happy family, and that includes Tim and Vicky, and so they get back together. And the movie ends with one last extravagant song and dance number, and everything's hunky-dory, and that's really all there is to say about it. Did I miss anything, Simone? Is there anything you'd like to add to the summary I gave?
None.
Well, if that's the case, then Simone, I don't know. What do you think you would rate this film out of 10, and why? What are you going to give it?
Okay. That's a good introduction to get into the show itself. I've been thinking the whole time that getting back on the story, I'm thinking of giving it a rating between 7.5 and an 8. I mean, I can say that I am thinking of giving a solid 8 or an 8.5 before we get back to what really happened in this film. But kind of recalling, because it's high heavy entertaining. It's more focused on the entertainment aspect of this form of media, this theatrical performances. And I try, and also there is here comes the some sort of stories that they put in it outside it into their personal lives. They're outside their life, the lives outside the theater, their personal problems and whatnot that are included in this. But yeah, but I'm trying to. But my point really is I'm drawing a connection. I'm looking into the connection. Does it work well or not? But yeah, I think that it's just maybe sakto lang or just in balance. I'm not sure if it's in balance. We can get through it in a deeper part of the discussion, I guess. But yeah, I think I see this movie more on the theatrical aspect, so the entertaining side, and I think that goes for my initial rating for this one.
Well, so when you say that the movie focuses more on the entertainment side of things, are you talking about, like, are you saying that the movie doesn't, it spends more time focusing on the careers of the characters as opposed to their personal lives? Or are you saying that, like, I don't know, like the runtime of the movie is more dedicated to like songs and singing as opposed to like story? What do you mean by that specifically when you say that? Yeah, go ahead.
See, I think that most of the time that I saw it that it's much more focused on their performances, but I can also deny the fact that it is also connected to their personal lives, or what who are them, or outside this world that they are working in. I mean, there's a connection, but even though that that particular aspect or side of their personal lives, I still see it as part of the entertainment of how this film work or had been during its runtime.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, and it makes sense too because they are very, the characters themselves are very dedicated to the theater. They're committed. I mean, that is their life. So it would make sense that the lines kind of blur between them. But I understand what you mean. Like, there are some sort of like aspects of the personal drama that goes on that perhaps could have done with a bit more elaborating or fleshing out. But yeah, I think that's something that we could talk about as we move further into the discussion. But yeah, I would say for me, you would give it somewhere between like a 7 and an 8, but I think I'll have to give it a 6.7 out of 10. Maybe that's just because I'm a little more critical than you are. But yeah, I don't know. It's not that I didn't hate. I didn't hate watching it. I will say that I didn't hate watching this movie. It was not an unpleasant viewing experience, but just objectively speaking, I think it is kind of pointless. I don't think it can be denied that this movie is kind of pointless. Like, there's nothing really to it beyond the glitz and the glamour, I guess, and even that's a bit lacking, at least in comparison to the last movie that we watched, Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. These are not similar movies at all. The only thing they have in common is that Marilyn is in both of them. But yeah, I think the problem with this movie is that it's an original story, so it's not based off of anything. Whereas Gentlemen Prefer Blondes was based off a novel. I tend to think, just generally speaking, it's not true all of the time, but I tend to think that things that are adapted from other materials tend to be better than things that are kind of raised up out of the ground, unless you have a really good set of people working on. It's like Hitchcock films, or that's something I would say that is like, if that's just an original script or whatever, that's great. But so like if it's by someone like Hitchcock or Ingmar Bergman or something, like that's a different class of film. But like a movie like this, that's just kind of a standard like 1950s musical comedy drama, you're probably going to get something that's pretty middling. And I would say that this is that, but for, I guess, slightly specific, like slightly interesting reasons. I think there, the how it got to be that way is mildly interesting. It's worth talking about anyway. And so I think really the problem with this movie, what makes it so like kind of average or mediocre, at least to me, is that it's an original story that's pretty much written around a lead song that was stolen from another musical, right? So there's no business like show business, which by the way doesn't even really appear in the movie at all. It's only at the very beginning during the opening credits and the very end when everything's over. I tend to think that this movie is it's one of those things where it's like, I'm sure like it's a business transaction more so than it is like an artistic vision or anything like that. I can see the conception of this movie playing out very simply. It's just a bunch of, some studio director, some MGM guy told some writers, hey, there's this song that we want to like, basically just let's take a bunch of Irving Berlin's songs because he's a noted name in theater and everything. Let's just write a stupid movie around it. Just take a scenario and make it up as you go along. And I think the writers were ambitious in what they were trying to do, because, I mean, what you have here is a failed family epic. It's this big drama. It's this intergenerational thing playing out, and there's a lot of time going by. It covers some American history and all of that, but it's like nothing ever really happens. Nothing ever really materializes from it. It's like they lay that out. I think the problem with this movie is that it has an overdeveloped like first half and an underdeveloped second half. It's like, so to me, it's like a steak that you burn on one side and that is raw on the other, because it's just they do a lot of setup that never really amounts to anything. It's like they do a lot of setup and then they never tie any of the loose ends that they establish in the beginning, and it just like ends like that, just right away, instantly. Everything's sort of resolved, and there's no real point to even watching it because there's no journey, and the dots are not connected in any sort of interesting or proper way. It's like they just sort of it's like they started out that's another thing I see too, because this is like, I see it more of as a business transaction kind of film than like an artistic kind of creative film. Unfortunately, I do think that the song and dance numbers and everything, those are fine. Those are good. They're not great. They don't have as much impact as I would like for them to, but they're good. And I appreciate the craftsmanship that went behind them, the costuming, the choreography, all of the set pieces. That's all fine and good and nice, and it actually cost the movie a lot of money, which was a bad thing because it turned out to actually be both a critical and financial failure in its time as well. Which is probably again why, unfortunately, why it is on YouTube for free. That's a trend that we're going to see when you make an entire podcast based on reviewing things that you can find for free on the internet. A lot of it's probably not going to be, or maybe not a lot of it, but a percentage of it is probably not going to be very good. Unfortunately, that's just the nature of the beast, and we have to do our best to work around it or work within it, such parameters. But yeah, I think the only thing that makes this movie worth watching is Marilyn. I would say watch it if you're like either a hardcore, diehard Marilyn Monroe fan or a lover of theater and musical and the sort of vaudevillian thing, because otherwise you're probably not going to get much out of it. Because other than the Marilyn and the theater stuff, I mean, it really is just it just seems to be a like I said, a failed family epic set within the microcosm of the theater world and vaudeville in particular. Nothing about it appealed to me coming in, and nothing really won me over coming out. But I don't know. I think I liked what they tried to do with it. I will say I admire the attempt. I can respect the attempt. But they just didn't do it very well, and they failed to connect the dots as smoothly as they should have. And I think the problem was that there was simply too much going on. None of the characters in the entire movie, none of the members of the Donahue family or Marilyn or anybody, they don't get enough time to really come into their own. And most of the runtime is taken up by small little songs that aren't very good and don't contribute much to the narrative itself. There are, however, a good 3 or 4 that I did enjoy watching, and those were fun. But yeah, the movie is just it's not consistently good all throughout. The quality dips and rises, and it's just there's nothing to really grab onto necessarily. And so I guess if I had to make a recommendation, which I don't tend to do, but if I had to make a recommendation, I would suggest to all the people out there to just watch clips if you're interested in the film at all. It's not really worth the full 2 hours, again, unless you're really into this kind of thing, whether it be for Marilyn or the singy, dancey stuff, or whatever the case may be. Then go for it. Sure, I'm not going to tell you what to do, but that's just my recommendation, because it seems like the writers. It seems like the writers didn't really know what they were going for with it, and it shows. It's hard to say. For me, it's hard to say if it's even really a case of missed potential, because I would go so far as to say that it seems as though the people who made it didn't even really know what they were making when they were making it, and I don't know. I guess it's a lot like, I always bring up metaphors, and I can never really come up with great ones, but I guess it's like making a sandcastle with wet sand, or like using chewed up bubble gum to put the pieces of a sculpture, like an art sculpture, together instead of glue. It's like, why would you do either of those things? Like, there's just no reason to do either of them. So I think ultimately the movie just lacks. Well, and I guess the music as well. But the movie just lacks impact, is all. It tries to land, but doesn't. And we can get into it a little later, but I don't really know why that's the case. I don't really know why it doesn't land. Is there anything you'd like to add to any of that, Simone? Why do you think the movie? I mean, do you think the movie doesn't have impact? And if so, why do you think that's the case? Why doesn't the movie?
That's why I said in the earlier questions that it's mostly focused on the entertainment aspect of it. That's why I think of giving an initial rating of between 7.5 and an 8, because I think that this storyline doesn't really matter at all. I mean, it matters in some sort of contexts that are present, but it's not a big deal. It doesn't make much impact compared to the entertainment aspect of this. That's why I think I am focused on that side in the initial answers. But if we're going to dive deeper, I guess that I can agree of almost all the things that you mentioned that is related to this. I mean, the characters are not very favorable, and there are a lot of things that I want to bring up. Maybe in the next few questions.
Sure, sure. So, what did you think of this film's technical merits? Costuming, the set design, the camera work, so on and so forth.
Good. That's a good question. That's where I am heading to because I didn't like I didn't like it. I didn't like a particular part because if I'm going um to uh to compare it to the latter part of the film, it's not working. This particular scene where Marilyn Monroe has her have performed in some tropical theme song and whatnot. Her costume there is not very favorable. It looks very bad, especially her hat and the flowers that are put into. They are not properly uh, glued or whatever, and her clothes. It doesn't look good.
Yeah.
It doesn't appeal that much. And on the latter parts, the issue is she doesn't like the costume for a particular, do you call it, particular performance that she's going to have the next day or whatnot. And I can see it just kind of what do you call this? It's just very contradicting because you see in the earlier part she just fine performing in this very bad costume, and then now it looks better. The costume looks better compared to the previous one. I know it's a lot to put things into word, but that's it. It's just very obvious contradictions that they put into it. I don't think that that the they didn't review well the plot when they are writing this, or if they this particular thing would matter. I think it matter because this film is related to theater and performance, and costumes is one of the most important element of it. So far the other productions are good, but it's just the number one issue that um, I noticed on this technical side of it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that song's called Heat Wave, and a lot of people thought it was shit as well. That was one of the that was one of the most common complaints that I saw in the critical reviews I read, and I would agree it is probably like the worst song in the entire soundtrack. But I thought it was funny that you brought that up. But I don't know. I think you're right. I think generally you're right. There are a lot of contradictions in the film and within the narrative and everything. Like they do write one thing and then write another to completely go against it. But I don't know. I think your specific example is kind of I don't know. I don't know if you can fault the character for having like weird opinions about things. I feel like that's a matter of like her own subjectivity or whatever. She might have liked that one costume for that one song because it really fit the song Heat Wave that she was trying to go for, compared to the other show where it's like maybe she just felt like it was a different kind of show, and so instead of a purple dress maybe she wanted a white dress. Like I don't know if that's a complaint that can I don't know if that's an instance that can be used as an example, but I see where you're coming from. But I don't think I would agree with that one moment in particular, because I mean, and also just take into consideration how actors are and both the theater and cinema. It's like they get picky about weird things like this. I mean, they have very interesting hills that they choose to die on. So I don't think that's necessarily a good example of the contradictions within the script writing, but I do know what you mean when you say that there are contradictions in the script writing, because there are for sure. And Heatwave is a shitty song for sure, but or at least a shitty performance by Marilyn for sure. And so, yeah, in terms of how I felt about the film's technical merits, I would say the only thing I noticed in particular is how the exteriors in the various rooms in the Donahue house and really most of the other rooms, most of the interior sets, like for example, the headmaster's office at the Catholic school, they gave away very blatantly the fact that the exterior was just the set on which they were filming. When you look outside of the windows, it's like you see or when somebody opens the door, it's like all you see is the blue like set filling or whatever of the state of the warehouse where they're in LA that they're shooting this all in, the sound house, whatever. And it's really bad looking, especially in the headmaster's school too, because it's you can tell like literally it's just what's on the other side of the window is just a painting, like a very bad matte painting as well of like a bunch of bush, like just bush leaves and stuff to make it look like there's actually something outside. And it's just I don't know, it creates this weird unintentional side effect, impression that the movie exists within some weird alternate parallel universe in which the world is just a series of vaguely connected rooms in a vast blue expanse of set dressing or something. But yeah, other than that, I would say that the technical stuff is pretty standard fare. Just like this whole movie is really just standard fare. I mean, it's a bit nonsensical in terms of the writing, but other than that, it's just average. They do take shortcuts, especially towards the end, which we'll talk about those contradictions. But I don't know, the dance routines and and all the costuming and the choreography and the set pieces for those. I thought those were average. Although they cost the filmmakers a lot of money, and so it's a shame that they didn't actually do anything. They didn't do anything very special with them. It's just a shame that you can't really even see the money, as well. I've seen movies where they do a lot better with a lot less. So yeah, I don't know. Anything you'd like to add to that, Simone?
Yeah, I can see the. I don't think that's a really good example to put the things together, but
Oh
yeah,
no, it's fine.
you explain it well. Okay, but I can see. I get it. I get it. I get the. Where is it? What is it all about? But yeah, I think that getting back to how the set is, I think that it looked like more like most of the sets that they're in, the fact that it's also used to in their most of their performance, it makes it look like some sort of sitcoms.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, exactly. That's how it looks
Very cheap.
most of the time.
Yeah, very
And
very
then
cheap and
it's not
very
even
disingenuous.
yeah, it's not even consistent. I mean, the next scene, for example, it was set in a some sort of reality or a normal room, and then the other next one in there it was set on some sort of sitcom setting.
Yeah.
I don't know what yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's like the house from Family Matters or something. Yeah, that's a good comparison. Um, but I don't. What did you think of? So since this is this is a musical, and we haven't really done too many musicals on the channel, so it's kind of a weird thing to. It's a relatively new thing for us to kind of talk about. But I don't know, Simone. What did you think of the songs themselves? What did you think of the film's soundtrack? How did that fare with you?
Uh, I think that I've been really entertained. I need to be honest that it's really entertaining,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think if the only thing that kind of uh makes it not look good or is the I think it's not very well set up. That's it. But it's good. I mean, the performance are really good. If you were just like you said that if you are going to recommend things, you would recommend that they watch this film uh, in different video clips, which is I think in that way the performance will matter. It just it makes sense in its own way
Yeah.
because it's different things. So it might work that way.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say, yeah, if you're gonna watch clips, specifically watch clips of the songs. Don't watch clips of the narrative because there really isn't really the story is very secondary. It's very much secondary. The musical aspect of the musical film takes precedence over the comedy drama stuff. But the interesting thing about that, I would say that the songs in here, like, I don't, not really, there isn't really. The only one that I would say is iconic is "There's No Business Like Show Business," and the only reason that's iconic is because it's designed to be almost the way that it's written, the rhyme scheme and all that. Sorry, excuse me. I don't know too much about songwriting or the techie stuff when it comes to this sort of thing. Not my forte. Uh, Not my immediate area of interest or expertise, but much less expertise. But what I will say is that most of the songs on the soundtrack for this film, they I think the interesting, none of them are really iconic. None of them are going to blow your mind, but they are all very well done. They're all tight knit. They're just they're proper. It's like they did the work to make it work, and so I think that's an interesting thing because sometimes you don't really want to put the pressure on yourself to like listen to something that's massively iconic. So I would say that if you're just in the mood for something chill and easy listening, and you're either like a theater person or you're interested in maybe becoming slightly a theater person or a theater interested kind of individual, I would say listen to these songs because there's not really much I don't know, there's like no pressure to them. There's no obligation. It's not like you have to stress yourself out thinking, am I fully appreciating this because it's such a big part of the culture or whatever. It's such a staple. It's a touchstone of the American theater or whatever. It's like, no, just listen to these songs. They're well made. They're well produced. They're just not, they're above average, but they're just not like, they're not going to change your life or anything. They might, maybe, I don't know, but they're not like that. They haven't soared to those heights necessarily. So maybe there's something good about that. Maybe there's something reassuring about their middling quality. But yeah, I would say they're above average. Most of them, the majority of the songs in this. But I'll go through them one by one. I'll break them down, and maybe if you want to do like a more detailed review of each individual song after I've gone, Simone, you can feel free. But I'll go through each, I guess, title on the soundtrack one at a time, and I'll rate each performance of each song by on a 10-star on a 10-star scale, as I did with the film in general. So there are a lot of these. Hopefully, we can get through them all within a timely and orderly manner. So the first song is called "When the Midnight Choo Choo Leaves for Alabama," and that's one of the songs it's one of those kinds of songs that's supposed to be kind of corny and mediocre. It's very sort of it's kind of campy, I guess. Corny is a better word for it, I think. And the movie opens with an intertitle that describes the two Donahues in 1919, Molly and Terrence, as being a small part of the vaudeville scene, right? And so they're still amateurs at this point at the very beginning. And so for me, it makes sense within the context of the narrative that this first song isn't very good. It's not bad. It's just mediocre and a bit silly, kind of ridiculous, right? It involves the two of them dressing up as parts of a train and throwing luggage at each other and that sort of thing. And the best part of it for me was when they bring out the whole family at the end. I thought that was nice, and it was a little heartwarming. It was a nice, like, charming little kind of moment between the members of the family. And so yeah, this song is later performed. There's like a reprisal of it by two of their children, Tim and Katie, at the party when they send Stephen off. They dress up as the train, and they throw luggage at each other and all of that. They do the whole thing too. And I personally, I thought Tim and Katie's version was better, and it was a fun little callback as well. So that was nice. I like when they kind of they do reprisals, or when they motifs when they do something and then they do it again and they do it a third time and it means something different each time. I like that kind of thing. So I like that version better. But I'll give the first performance a 6 out of 10 and the second one a 7. So they both pass. They're just, they're not fantastic, and there's potentially better on the way. So that's why I like to leave room. It's more so leaving room for better things, I guess. So yeah, we'll reserve the higher scores for other songs that are potentially better. After that, there is "Play a Simple Melody," and that song it's another corny song from the beginning of Molly and Terrence's career. As with the first song, the best part of it is when they bring the whole family out at the end. It's very slight, and it's really only there to follow up the first song about the trains, to show the progression of the Donahues' career as amateur vaudevillians. And so I'll only give it a 6 out of 10 as well. "A Pretty Girl Like a Melody," I'll count these out as I go. "A Pretty Girl Like a Melody" is a song Molly and Terrence performed during the Great Depression. At this point in their career, they're desperate to continue working in the theater, so they resort to working with 9 attractive blonde women as part of their act in order to kind of sensationalize it a bit and get butts and seats. And this song involves Molly. Trying to catch Terrence's attention romantically, but Terrence being too distracted by the 9 blondes to pay her much attention. She tries to sit down on the same bench as him, but every time she does, he stands up, and so the bench falls down and her along with it. I liked the little story that this song told, so I'll give it a 7. But again, it's another song that mainly serves the narrative purpose of tracing the Donahues' career progress over the years, and there's not much more to it than that. 4 is You'd Be Surprised, and You'd Be Surprised is a song about a guy who doesn't seem to have any obvious talents, but claims to be capable of winning over women under certain circumstances or something. Maybe at quieter events than dances, or I don't know what he's trying to say really. But I'll give it a 7 out of 10. Although, if I'm being honest, I actually don't even remember hearing it anywhere in the film as I watched. But I did, however, I did listen to another rendition of it, and that sounded solid enough there. So we'll just roll with it. 7. I don't know if it's cheating or not, but I don't know. Sue me. 5 after that. 5 is the fifth song is Let's Have Another Cup of Coffee. And this is a song that was apparently spoofed by Family Guy at some point, so that's a little interesting tidbit there. I like this song. It's a good Depression-era tune. It's about being optimistic during hard times. You know, the rainbow's right around the corner, and when life's got you down, just have another cup of coffee and another piece of pie. 8 out of 10. 6 is Alexander's Ragtime Band, and that it's a song that it's the song that I would consider to be the first big song in the film. It's also the song that the five Donahues perform while they are at the height of their career together, after the children have all graduated high school. The song takes the listener through a handful of different cultures. There is an Irish part and a French part and so forth. And so for the diversity of costumes and backdrops and styles that they use for this number, I think I'll have to give it a 7.5 out of 10, maybe even an 8. I would give it an 8, but sonically, personally, to me, it just doesn't sound that good, at least to me. And I don't know if that's just a me thing, but for that, I'm going to give. I think I'll stick with my 7.5. 7 is the seventh song is putting on the Ritz, and this is a song it's a real song, and I think it's another Irving Berlin composition. But in the film, it's done instrumentally in the background during the nightclub scene by the orchestra there. And it's a live orchestra, and so that I didn't pay attention to the song as I was watching the film. I did go back and re-listen to it, and it is good. And I think it's I also respect the fact that the orchestra was live and performing it there. So for that, I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I would give it an 8 or a 9, but because it's an instrumental, I don't feel like that's really fair to the other songs, kind of thing. So yeah, 8. The 8th song is After You Get What You Want, You Don't Want It, and that's the first song that Marilyn performs while she's in the nightclub trying to impress Lou Harris. And I thought this song was good, but to be honest, if I'm being honest, I didn't like how sexualized it was, and maybe that's a bit ironic, but I don't know. Call me a prude, but I just think Marilyn's too attractive to have to go there, to have to stoop to those levels, even though that's usually what she did, And it's funny because, I mean, obviously what she's known for is her status as an American sex symbol, right? I mean, she's famous for doing the first nude for the first issue of Playboy magazine back in the early 50s. And I actually own that. I don't know why, but I have that issue for whatever reason in my library at home where I am right now. But yeah, I could get it, but I don't want to get the channel taken down. So but trust me, I do have it. Take it on faith that I do actually own a copy of it. I don't know if it's an original copy, but I have some version of it or another, and I have seen it, and I have done certain things with it, but we won't get into those. Anyway, yeah, so she took that picture of her, and then plus, I mean, she just did a bunch of stuff like this. She did a bunch of nude photo shoots and all that. And she also, obviously, another iconic thing that she did was she took that picture of her holding her dress down as the air from the sewage grate in New York blows it up from underneath her. She did all sorts of things like that. And plus, I mean, third iconic thing that she did, just off the top of my head, she performed a very sexually charged rendition of Happy Birthday called Happy Birthday, Mr. President, to John F. Kennedy, the king of Camelot, before he got his brains blown out in Dallas. Not to be, a dick about it, but rest in peace, good old JFK. Even though, the whole thing in Cuba and everything, but I don't know anything about it. Installing dictators in foreign countries, and then because he didn't like their governments or anything, it's kind of a complicated. Well, every president's complicated. I don't know, but I just think it's interesting. Weird tangent, but I think it's kind of I don't know. To be honest, I don't really like that people romanticize him just because he's attractive and just because he's just because he was young and good looking and well educated and all of that, had a hot wife, whatever. He's not a hot wife who just, not all one word, but hot space wife, not someone who sleeps around with everybody and wears a special necklace around. Yeah, what am I don't know what I'm talking about anymore. Yeah, but in any case, he did a lot of stupid shit too. I don't know. But yeah, I don't. Maybe Marilyn doing a similar thing here in this movie with this song, which is called, it's a long title, but After You Get What You Want, You Don't Want It. After you get what you want, you don't want it. I don't know. I think in a way it kind of just reminds me a bit too much of like her death or something, maybe. But in any event, if it weren't for the associations that I make between the song and the actress performing it, standing on its own, the song itself, I would say it's pretty middling as well. So I'll give it another 6. And so not to linger on this one thing for too long. The next song after that, I don't know if we're on 9. I think we're on 9 now, right? 9th song is called Remember, and Remember is a song about nostalgia, and they play it in the background as the Donahue children begin to grow up and go their separate ways, and this is the song that they play as Terrence and Molly, the parents, they narrate. So this is during the kind of the what is it, montage sequences, and it has a nice emotional resonance to it, and it's very fitting for those scenes. It works very well, so I'll give it a 7 out of 10. 10th song is If You Believe, and If You Believe it's a religious tune that Steve performs during his going away party before he enrolls in seminary school to become a priest. And it's all right, but the actor playing Steve, he looks mildly insane as he performs it. He does this weird thing with his face where he moves his jaw from side to side as he sings, and it makes him look pretty dumb. I don't know. 7 out of 10. 11th song is Heat Wave, and that is probably as we've said previously established, probably the worst song in the entire movie. It's just very tacky, and it lacks any sort of satisfying beats or rhythms, and Marilyn doesn't do a very good job of presenting it to the audience. It doesn't sound good at all. It doesn't look good, and it just goes on for a bit too long. And it's the second song that Marilyn performs, and it involves her being some sort of Amazon priestess being catered to by a bunch of servants, and there's some kind of like just weird random, like, I don't know, romanticizations of like South American culture or whatever, and some just stereotypes and all of that. It's another sexualized song, and but it's really so boring that there's nothing to say about it beyond the fact that it's bad. So 4 out of 10. I'm gonna give that one. It's a little worse than just a solid 50% failure. 12th song, dozenth song is a man chases a girl until she catches him, and this is the song that Tim sings when he's kissed Vicky goodnight, and Marilyn joins in on backing vocals during the second half of it, which was nice. It was cool. And Tim sings this in the courtyard outside her hotel room, and repeatedly has to stop himself from knocking on her door again and again, which is it's not charming, by the way, even though the movie wants to make it charming. It's just creepy. It's like, why are you so upset? Like, I get it, but it's like, he's just so desperate, man. He's annoying. It's not like it's actually really annoying. He's like, calm the fuck down, dude. But yeah, towards the end of the song, towards the end of the choreography and everything for it, a bunch of pink statues by the fountains come to life and start dancing along with him, and he climbs onto the roof of Vicky's hotel, and he turns the water on all the fountains and like sprays himself with it, douses himself in fountain water, and then when the song is over, everything goes back to normal. So there's that. Nice little blending of fantasy and reality, I guess. Magic realism. I don't know. I'll give it a 7 out of 10 for the little story that it's able to tell through the dance sequence. I like that. I think that's an effective kind of technique, is when you have like just a song and you kind of tell a little narrative within it, and it plays out. It's like a short film. It's like within a film. That's nice. That's when something is at its most effective. I think that's the stamp of like a good track, or a good song on a soundtrack, or a good song in a musical, and a good number. 13th song, unlucky number 13, even though this is actually a really good one. Is Lazy, and Lazy is the song where Tim, Katie, and Vicky all perform together, and Marilyn sings most of it, and it's about Vicky, Marilyn wanting to stay inside all day, reading books and relaxing instead of going out with all the droves of men, heaps of men that are chasing after her, calling her on the phone every 5 seconds, trying to take her out. I'll give it an 8 for being the most solid and tight knit of the tracks. The song and dance choreography go well together for this one. So yeah, 8 out of 10. Song number 14 is called A Sailor's Not a Sailor, Till a Sailor's Been Tattooed. And this is another sort of tacky theater song that for all these tacky theater songs, I bet that they're really fun to perform. I bet it's great when you're on the other end of it, when you're making it with just a bunch of friends and you're just having a good time, a bunch of chuckles and all of that. But it's not fun to watch. It's not really that great, I would say. When you're on the receiving end of it, it's not really, it loses that novelty, I would say. It's kind of like an inside joke. That's kind of how I see a lot of these tacky songs. But yeah, Molly dresses up as the enjoyment is one sided. But yeah, Molly, the mother for this one, she dresses up as a man because this was supposed to be within the film. I mean, they didn't need to write it this way, but this was supposed to be Tim's song, right? And so, yeah, it's about two sailors. One's old and one's young, and the old one is about to take the young one to get tattooed as a sort of rite of passage into Navy life. And the old sailor shows the young one all his various tattoos, and then the young one gets a bunch of tattoos himself. And I just thought it was kind of pointless, and that Molly's sailor makeup looked a bit bad. So 6 out of 10. That's just a purely subjective thing. Little nitpick there, but yeah, song 15 maybe is Marie, and Marie is a quick song that a trio of male nightclub singers perform during a brief scene in which Terrence, Molly, Kate, and Steve are looking for Tim. And I'll give that one a 7.5 on the sole basis that I liked the way it sounded, and it was simple and it didn't overstay its welcome the way that some of the other songs did. So there's that one. Song 16, last but not least, is There's No Business Like Show Business. And that's the best song, I think, because it's the only one that, again, comes close on the entire soundtrack to being anywhere close to iconic, And it disappoints me that they didn't use it more often throughout the course of the film, It's there in the very beginning during the opening credits and back again at the very end when everything's been resolved. It's my favorite out of them all, out of all of them by far, just because of how grandiose it sounds. And it got me really excited. It got me really hyped up when I was watching the opening credits. I was like, this is going to be a good movie. This is going to be great. This is going to be like a nice way to spend 2 hours. It wasn't a bad way to spend 2 hours. It just wasn't, it wasn't as good as it could have been. But yeah, it kind of led me on. But I'll give it an 8.5 out of 10, despite not being utilized as much as it should have been. So yeah, Simone, I pass the torch over to you now. Is there anything you'd like to add to anything I've said?
To be honest, I lose the track of them, but I can say that there are 3 performances that I like the most. I don't know, it's kind of, maybe you won't agree, but I like the first and I think the second act where the kids are included. I like it better when they are still kids compared to when they are grown up, because especially Tim is very and also the other guy, his brother, is also kind of in a comical way, or in a way they kind of are somehow annoying, or I don't know, some sort of things. But the way that they perform, I think it's good. Because of the other elements that are present in it. So the second song that I like is Marilyn's first performance. You like it, but you some sort, I don't know what's its title. Like, you like it when you get it, you don't like it anymore, some sort. I like that one, and also the last one. That's what I'm expecting for this movie to go. Or in the beginning, I'm searching for Marilyn. Where is she? Where I thought that the fact that she's included in it, she will have a very significant role in this one. But it's okay that that the fact that as you said, that it's just moderate. That I think it's okay how it works. But there are some potential. There are a lot of potentials in it. The last performance, I think that they should include the Donna, you and Madeline performing together. They should do that. Maybe a couple more performance. They should include that because it worked well. That's That's what I'm looking forward for this. Just like in the beginning or in just in the middle when she was introduced, that I think that that's the best way that this movie will work.
Yeah, yeah. I liked the kids at the beginning. That was the best part of the like I said before, that was the best part of the first two acts. But yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. But I mean, I think the important thing to remember about Marilyn as well, just in general, is that she actually like she wasn't actually that respected during her lifetime. Not as much as she is now that she's dead. You know, I think her dying very young, I think that kind of immortalized her in the minds of a lot of people, especially a lot of people who didn't even know her when she was big back in the day, or you know, big enough. But yeah, you know, Marilyn, she's complicated, but yeah, I don't think people really had any faith into her until had any faith in her until she was dead, kind of in a weird way. But anyway, I don't know. So, but it you know that's why she got a lot of like supporting roles as opposed to leading ones, and that's why she was in a lot of kind of these kinds of movies. Even if she did have a leading role, she'd be in a comedy as opposed to like a serious dramatic capacity in some other film, you know. But in any case, uh, I guess that leads kind of directly into my next question, though, Simone. What did you think of the characters? What did you think of the characters in this film?
Mm, the way they act, they're if I were to describe them, they're just acting like general people. At any phase of the film, they're just acting that they are really on stage. Most of them,
Yeah,
especially the Donahue family. That's how I see them. It just
yeah,
I don't know. I find it more entertaining if they're doing an actual act than a mostly family stuff and conversations. That's why I'm focusing on the entertainment side of it.
yeah. I liked some of their banter during like the breakfast scenes or whatever, but they're kind of annoying. Like just in general. If I'm going to talk, I'm going to go one by one with the characters, and maybe you can elaborate more as we get a little deeper into it. But I don't. I just. They're all kind of bipolar. I kind of that's the best way I would describe pretty much every character in the movie. I mean, the supporting characters they don't have enough to do, so they're not really in it like at all. But so I'm not even going to talk about them. But they're whatever, right? Like the Lou Harris is just like he's just the boss. That's like all he is. There's nothing to even say about him. The guy who marries Katie is just the guy who marries Katie. Like there's nothing to say about him either. They do one thing and then that's it. You know. But yeah, I mean in terms of like the especially the Donahue family in particular, they're just very kind of uneven, and that's where a lot of the inconsistency comes from is in their characterization. But yeah, so I guess to start, Molly who's the Donahue mother. She reminds me of a typical like East Coast Italian American like matriarch. You know what I mean? She's caring but stubborn, and she alternates between being very accommodating and very domineering towards the other members of her family. And I think on the whole I like her characterization because it feels very true to life, and it doesn't overstay its welcome the way that like a lot of stereotypes with this kind of character would. You know, you would have I don't know in like another movie you would have like a situation where a character like this kind of drags out the grudge that they have against another character for the entirety of the film. You know, it's like it didn't overstay its welcome in this case. It didn't become a burden on the viewer here. So I give them credit for not, subjecting their audience to that, I guess, the filmmakers in that sense. And so then after her, there's Tim. And so, yeah, Tim is the Donahue father, and he's someone that I want to like more than I do, I think. I felt as though his characterization was a bit inconsistent from one scene to the other. You know, and he's especially bipolar, I would say. The fact that he slaps his son Tim for making a joke during the hospital scene, and the conversation that they have there, it's like Tim is just being sarcastic, and he's like, you know, he just says something about corn or something. Excuse me, by the way. He says something about corn, and that's the thing that pisses off the dad enough to like physically assault his own son. I just thought that makes him seem erratic more so than it does like I guess portray or like convey to the audience that he's like had his feelings hurt and everything as it was supposed to. Obviously, like the joke about the corn or whatever is supposed to be like the straw that broke the camel's back, right? On top of everything else, on top of the fact that Tim has ruined his chance to like perform on this big show at the Hippodrome Theater, and the fact that he's gotten into a car accident, and the fact that he's broken up with his girlfriend and everything. That's obviously what he's mad about. But like the corn, the way they write it, it makes it seem like he's really mad about his stupid corn joke. It's like I don't know. It's just so bad. It's not good. It just makes him seem like a psychopath. So I don't know. The way they wrote it just makes him seem like a weirdo. And I think the same goes for Steve as well, who's the oldest son, the firstborn son, the oldest child. He wants to become a priest, and that's most likely because of his time in Catholic school as a boy, right? But there's something mildly kind of off about him as well. If you took him on appearance alone, like just looks, he'd seem like a poster child of the 1950s, with like his well-combed hair and his blue suit and everything, and tie and red and blue tie and all of that. But I don't know. It's like the writers didn't know how to lead up to developing his character, and he's barely in the movie anyway. He's not really around much, so there's not much to really say about him one way or the other. But it's like he seems like a bit of a freak. I don't know. A lot of freakiness in the family, excluding the theatrical stuff. Just in their personal lives, they're fucking weird. But I would say that Tim Donahue is the weirdest out of all of them, out of all the various Donahue family members. And I don't feel like he really doesn't deserve to get a happy ending with Marilyn. I don't think, because the film seems to accidentally write him into being a full-blown alcoholic with emotional issues. That's the character they make. He's not the most stable person in the world. And even though the script tries to pass it off as something that's like funny and like quirky, like, oh, look at this kid, he's just a sensitive young lad, he doesn't really know what he's doing or whatever. It's more so just depressing than anything else. He got it too easy in the end. I think he was let off a bit too easily. Because he's a bit of he's a spoiled, pushy brat. He's not the kind of person that you would want for a protagonist in this type of movie. This type of movie is supposed to be lighthearted and fun and stuff. It's like you can't have like it's not even that he's complicated or tortured or whatever. It's just like you can't have someone this unlikable in a movie like this. It just kills the vibe a little. It brings down the mood, the atmosphere. And yeah, he's kind of a little bitch. So I don't know. That's how I feel about him. Katie, however, the daughter, is the best of the Donahue family, I would say. She's pretty normal. That's really all there is to say about her. She's an ordinary gal. A fine gal, I would say. And she's good at performing, on stage, by the way. I don't know. I'm not sure about anywhere else. But and she has a good sense of humor as well. So she's witty. I like some of the banter that she has with the parents, and the brother. But again, the writers don't really do anything with her besides marry her off, I'd like to have seen her play a more active role in the narrative. And I liked that the actress that they picked for her, she was attractive, but she wasn't as attractive as Marilyn. And they did that specifically. Like she's got like a good look to her, but it's a different kind of look as opposed to Marilyn, who's like a kind of a very accessible look, like a universal beauty. It's like I liked the way that Katie, I like the visually. It's like she is like a theater princess or theater queen kind of person. It's like it looks like you look at her and it's like this is someone that this is like the most attractive girl in an amateur theater class. This is not like it's not a beauty queen, but it's it makes sense within. I don't know. It's just it seems very true to life to me. I don't really. It's just a weird thing that association, but anyway, I don't know. In any case, last but not least, definitely not least, is Marilyn and her character. Marilyn's character Vicky. And in here, Vicky is much more realistic than whatever Marilyn's character was in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, but a bit less interesting as well, I would say, because of that. Marilyn was good as a leading lady, I would say, when she was the star. Here as the love interest, she isn't able to shine as much, but despite that, she still performs quite well, with the exception, of course, of Heatwave. She takes her star energy just as a person, as an actress. She takes her star energy everywhere she goes, and it's a quality that you cannot separate from her, and that's obviously why she was so liked. I mean, it makes perfect sense. It's in the skin. It's in the skin that stardom that she has. But yeah, all in all, I felt as though there were too many characters. Really, I think the cast was a bit too big for there to be any serious development with more than 2 or 3 of them. But even the 2 or 3 that they did pick Tim. I would say that that would be Tim, Vicky, and I don't even maybe Molly, the mom. Those three didn't even really get full character arcs in my opinion. Like they didn't come full circle. Any of them. Maybe the movie needed to be another hour long in order to fully flesh them out, but I don't think that's what the movie was going for anyway. And it just doesn't seem like a good idea. I don't think everything has potential. I just gotta say that now. I think there are some things that you just gotta like look at it and go, this is shit. This is a failure. You can't like. There's just nothing really. You can maybe make it a little bit better, a bit of a better disaster. You can ameliorate it, but you cannot cure it. You cannot completely. You would have to completely like tear this movie apart and make a different movie. At that point, it would just be a different movie. So whatever. There's that. That's what I say. As this movie stands, and in pretty much almost all like conceivable whatever, it's like the pieces that they have just don't fit together. Yeah, and the characterization is a big part of that. Is there anything you'd like to add to anything I just said, Simone?
Yeah, I think that's where I'm also heading. That's there are some characters that have potential, but the writer didn't give that much opportunity or some sort. Just like with Berlin Alexander, but getting back to it, they didn't plan things out because I think that it's really focused on uh, entertainment aspect of it, and that's pretty much it. I think the entertainment part is I think it's balanced, but I think if the part when the movie is telling about their lives outside the show, it would be better if it's much more polished. I think that it will give it much more substance, not only on the entertainment aspect, but to make it a movie as a whole.
Yeah.
To make it because the entertainment part, I think that it is the soul of it. Maybe or some sort of a body, but there should be some sort of scheme that or some sort of a particular element that will glue it together. That's how I see it.
Yeah, some sort of narrative or creative cohesion, as they say. But who are some of the characters in particular that you saw potential in? Because you mentioned when you were talking that there were some characters that you saw potential in. So who were they? If you could tell us.
I can say that it's again Marilyn and also the Vicky. I forgot her name. Uh, the daughter of the mon.
Oh, Katie.
What's her
Yeah.
name again?
So Vicky and Katie.
Katie, yeah. She has potential. I mean, there's much more in her character than marrying a man, and that's pretty much it. When she got when he's when her boyfriend proposed to her, and that's pretty much it. That ends her. Kinda put an end to more character development of some sort. It kinda ruined or cut off the opportunity for something better to happen.
Yeah, honestly, it's like the two boys. The two sons had problems, but like she didn't have any problems. She just had like a bad date that one night. It's like honestly, it might have been better if she had a problem or something like a flaw that they had to work through or anything, like some conflict or whatever. She might be put in another awkward situation. They didn't do anything like that though. It's really just a shortcut to just it's very rushed. It's very shoddy, and I think that's the real problem with this movie. I think it's just the fact that like it ends with this, supposedly heartwarming moment where everyone comes together and stuff. And it's like you sitting there as the viewer. It's like, why should I care about this? I don't care about this because you didn't earn it. It's not earned. They didn't write it the way that they needed to. And so it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, you did a rush job. And so I don't need to pay attention. I tune out. That's how I see it. Was there a character that you liked the least, Simone? Is there anyone that you like hated in particular or just didn't like at all? You had to pick like one or two that you just didn't enjoy.
I think Tim, because he's annoying.
Yeah.
And also I can say that, but I didn't say that I didn't or hate him or kinda say that he shouldn't be in the story at all. But he has done some significant acts, I can say. But kinda a bit too much the way he acts. I mean, uh, if I were to put it into word into comparison to how her sister acts had been, it kind of the writers focus on them on giving them too much problem. That's why they are acting that way or kind of problematic in some sort, and they kind of get all the problems, and their sister didn't kind of get any of those. That's why she her character lost the potential to develop in a way more.
Yeah. Yeah, no problems, no conflicts, nothing to work with, nothing to react to. You gotta have characters in media. They have to react to things, even if people in real life don't always react to things. Even though we all have to react to something at some point, it's like it's just that's what they do. That's their function within a creative fictional work. It's you gotta make that happen. And they for whatever reason they didn't feel like it. I don't know. They were just juggling too many things, I think. But yeah, I don't know, Simone. This might be a redundant question, but I figured I'd put it in here anyway. What did you think of the plot specifically? What did you think of the story? If there's is there anything interesting that you can say about it that you can comment on here with this particular aspect of the film?
Um, the way I didn't focus that much on it. I can say that there's a potential that they will plan things out better in connection to their performances. I mean, there should be just like you said, there might be some they should put common elements of a story, some sort of conflicts that they put into it that's kind of uh, make kind of dictate the character and how they will act or respond to any of these things that are happening in their immediate environment or the story itself. Maybe that some contexts that they would include more, but the problem with this is they're kind of more on personal problems than um, I can see it in the a large scale or for the movie itself. It kind of uh, just like with Tim, he has some being problematic and alcoholic and whatnot, and that's
Yeah.
pretty much it. And his brother is wanted to be a brass of some sort, and their parents are acting some a bit weird sometimes, and that's it. I mean, it kind of act on more on personal problems, but more and it doesn't it's not coherent at all. It kind of there should be a particular element that again that should bond it together.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. Are there any specific improvements that you would want to see in the movie that you would, if you had like the script and you could change whatever you wanted? Is there anything that you would specifically put in there? Um, you think?
um if I were to change this material, it would be some sort of a sitcom. It will work that way if that's the only way to fix this thing or to kind of make sense of the present elements that in it, or to develop it more into a better material or a movie.
Yeah, that's a good shout. That's a good situational comedy. That would, especially with theatrical stuff like that, that could be good if they did like slapstick or something. Maybe kind of in the same vein of like Chaplin or Three Stooges. Maybe that could work because they're already theatrical anyway. I don't know. Maybe they could have a scene where it's like it's an ordinary. It's part of like the narrative. It's just it's a story scene, but then like maybe one of them trips on like a banana or something stupid, and then it breaks into song, and like they could have like fun little transitions like that. To be quirky and kind of tongue in cheek about it. Like that would work for the tone that they already had in this iteration of the film. Yeah, if they did something like it'd be more clever if they kind of had their footing on the material, but it's like they were kind of dominated. It seems like the material was in control of them as opposed to them being in control of the material. The writers, I don't know, something was fucked up. And it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. It's what we're talking about right now. So yeah. But yeah, like I said before, the plot was it was rushed and uneven, as if they overdeveloped the first half and undercooked the second. You know, they burnt part one, and second part two is a little too raw for consumption, proper consumption. There was an awful lot of build up in the beginning for a very slight delivery in the end, very underwhelming delivery in the end. Why spend so much time, constructing the Donahue family if you're barely going to do anything with them and shift focus instead towards Vicky, you know? And maybe the film would have worked better if it was only about Vicky trying to make it as a singer. You know, I'd rather watch that movie than this one. But there's no reason to be overly harsh, I don't think. The plot is fine. It's just slight, and objectively speaking, it's no good at all. But I don't hate it. It's just meh. You know, it doesn't land. It doesn't make an impact either way. I don't love it. I don't hate it. I just it's very forgettable, and that's really it. Uh, yeah. I don't know. Simone, would you say that did this movie teach you anything new about Marilyn? Did you come out of this film with a better understanding of Marilyn, or according to my autocorrect on my iPhone here, Marlin? Did you come out of this film with a refined understanding of Marilyn Monroe and her significance in culture and all that sort of thing?
I think the previous movie about Marilyn that we covered the last time, I think it's enough to give me a full up understanding of who she is or how significant she is in the era that she's from, or her works so far. And this one, I think it's very light. It's kind of light. It just they somehow I can see it in some perspective that she is cast in this one, maybe for some sort of attention, or to give it some a different they're trying to put different elements in it, some sort, because it's kind of, maybe she's not very famous at that time, but she has a name. She's Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah, yeah. Well, what I learned about it was that what I learned about Marlon is that she can be a bad performer as well as a good one when given terrible material to work with. It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't good either. It just wasn't good. So yeah. But I mean, you kind of brought it up already, Simone. But how does this movie compare with Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, which was the one we reviewed last episode?
Uh, I think we already been into the depths of this movie, or in this conversation or discussion. I think to compare it, it's really different from it. Especially if we're going to point out the themes. I think the themes obviously said it different from the last one that we cover, and also maybe the way Marilyn acts, because it's not very focused on her, and also there are a lot of things. It's really obvious that it lacks the good things that the previous movie that we cover uh, usually have, or its kind of main element that makes it stands out the most.
Yeah.
I think it is present in here, but they didn't make the most out of the material that they have, or kind of limit the potential of the material. Kind of, I don't know, just like in the previous question, we were asking that if we were going to change the material to serve the movie itself, I think that there's not much to do to it at all.
No, no. The pieces are all fucked. They don't fit together. But yeah, I would say Gentlemen with Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is a much better movie, much better film, and it's an art film, really, especially compared to this that makes fun of movies like this, like whatever this movie's called. There's no business like show business. This movie is just standard. It's average. It's middling. It's mediocre. Ultimately a failure. But yeah, I don't know. I guess that's the end of our discussion here. I don't know. Simone, are you still having watched a good example of a musical and a bad example of a musical? Are you still interested in watching theater, reviewing theater for the channel, or we're not going to. The next one's not going to be. We're not going to be doing it for a while, but I don't know. Are you still interested, having experienced both a good and bad example of musicals and all that la di da sort of stuff?
Um, Maybe it depends on the material that we're going to cover, if it's good or bad, or for whatever reputation it has. But I think it's this the good material that we covered the last time, and this one that kind of average. I think it's kind of help us practice on what particular um, approach are we going to use this um, uh, on these musicals, or this particular, what do you call it, theme or genre of entertainment.
Yeah. Well, in any case, we this is the end of episode 39, and I've got the next 15 episodes of the podcast laid out. They're all planned, and I know exactly what we're going to do and when we're going to do it, and it's going to be a lot of fun. It's a nice, it's what I've always imagined the podcast to be, and yeah, I think it's going to be very enjoyable. It'll be a nice thing to finally see materialize. I really do want to break past 50, but yeah, I don't know. That's it. That's the end of the show. You guys, hope you enjoyed. Like, share, comment, subscribe, engage with us in all the various ways you can, and yeah, hopefully you got something out of this. If you didn't, oops. But yeah, I'm sure you did if you've made it this far. But yeah, I'm gonna go. How do you think this episode went, Simone? Real quick before we close out, how do you think it went?
I think it's good. I think we just give and right justice in this one. I think that the follow-up questions, help me elaborate my opinions more, and it kind of makes the discussion better.
That's good. That's good. That's what it's all about, So yeah. Anyway, guys, that's it. So take care and bye for now, and peace.